Mr. Moore.
Hi, Angela.
I have a question for you.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so how are the electron configuration important to everyday life?
In our everyday life, Angela, we have various combinations of the elements that we find in our periodic table. And of those elements, certain of them combine. And when they combine, it's due to the electron configurations of those elements. So the best way to we use them in an everyday basis is the types of food that we eat because they're bonded, they form bonds. And then we have watermelons, we have oranges, we have apples, we have asparagus, we have all sorts of different types of food. And all of those are made up of elements. And all those elements, once we eat them, are transferred into our body, and then they're broken down and they're used, such as the carbon and nitrogen and the oxygen, and everything that we eat, once it's broken down, breaks down back to its basic elements. And those basic elements, again, contain the electrons. And the electrons in the outer shell of an element, or what an atom, or what bonds each other. So we may say H and O. So we have H2O, which produces water. So therefore, water is essential and very important to our everyday lives. So the basic and the most important thing about electron configurations is understanding the various levels. There's the 7 levels, and also the sub-levels. So that therefore, if we were in the lab and we wanted to make something, like example, the food that they're making now, some of it is artificial, which means it's being produced in the lab, and others are naturally grown out in the fields. Those foods that are grown in the fields, the scientists have taken them, cut them apart, broken them down, and finding out what elements they're made out of. Then those elements, you can determine what the electron configurations, and therefore, a scientist in the lab can take this amount of oxygen, this amount of carbon, this amount of hydrogen, this amount of nitrogen, depending on what it is, and also produce the foods, the cloning of the foods that we use a lot of times in today's society. Another example in our everyday life is using it in fireworks. So you have the various different colors. So once those electrons are excited to a certain level, they give off a light source. And it depends on what element it is. So you get a green, that's what, therefore when you see fireworks explode in the air, you see greens and reds and blues and silver colors. And all of those are the various elements that have, and then the electrons and the configurations that each of those elements are made out of.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore.
You're welcome, Angela.